but I want to start with the defense, and I want to start with what I like, the good, the defensive line in general. I think coming into this offseason, people were looking at that defensive line as potentially like the biggest question mark on the team, particularly defensive tackle. I saw a couple news outlets say that the Niners defensive tackle room might be the worst defensive tackle group in the entire NFL. And I mean, if you're looking at it on paper after the draft, you're thinking Nick Bosa and three rookies, Alfred Collins, CJ West, and Michael Williams. This defensive line could really, really stink. But 2 days into camp, I'm starting to see the light on this. I'm not saying it's going to be great right away, but I think it's going to be a hell of a defensive line. So far, what I see, what was their number one thing they wanted to improve this offseason? What was the number one point of emphasis? Their run defense. And so far, it seems like the Niners are having a lot of trouble running the ball. Again, it's 2 days into camp. They haven't even put the pads on. But McCaffrey, Garendo, Patrick Taylor Jr., the vets, when they get the ball, they tend to get stopped around the line of scrimmage, which was different last year. Last year, it was a lot of long runs. This year, not so much. Again, it's only been 2 days, but it seems like there's a whole lot. I mean, Michael Williams is a really good run defender. And you got a bunch of big bodies in the middle now. And Alfred Collins, Jordan Elliott, CJ West, Evan Anderson's improved, Kalia Davis is improved. So it's a big D line. And I feel like the run defense is noticeably better. We'll see what happens in a real game, but that's my expectation. And then the other question is the pass rush. And I think when they drafted Michael Williams, the question was, all right, so he's a good run defender, but is he really going to be the bookend to Nick Bosa that they were looking for? And that was a fair question because he really wasn't that guy in college. And I think what I would say now is he doesn't have to be because that's why they traded for Bryce Huff. And on third downs, they could have Michael Williams on the edge, or they could have him at defensive tackle next to Bryce Huff or next to Nick Bosa. And they're doing that a lot. So it seems to me that you have Nick Bosa, who's going to have more space, more one-on-one matchups this year because the rest of the D-line is more dangerous. And you have Bryce Huff, who's going to be really the number 2 pass rusher. And then you have Michael Williams, who can be the number 3. And I think as a 21-year-old rookie who's floating back and forth between two positions, the edge and inside, having him be your number 3 threat as a pass rusher is perfect. So I think that trio of pass rushers between Bosa, Huff, and Michael Williams is maybe not the first month of the season, but by the end, it could be elite. It could be elite. So that's why I'm so enthusiastic about this defensive line. And I just like watching Michael Williams alone during 11-on-11 drills. I like zeroing in on him. Yesterday, I saw him beat Dominic Pooney one-on-one in a real quick win that you only see from players who are drafted very high in the draft. Think Alden Smith, DeForest Buckner, that kind of a win. And he did it playing defensive tackle. Today, he was going against Colton McKivitz and Trent Williams. And I do feel like in both cases on pass plays, you see Michael Williams, struggle, get tied up. I don't know how effective of an edge rusher, how many instant wins he's going to have as an edge rusher at this stage of his career. He's still learning. But as an edge setter, as a run defender, he was absolutely standing up Trent Williams. They could not run to Michael Williams' side. If they try, he would either set the edge and Christian McCaffrey would either have to cut it back into the defense or try to retreat and bounce around him. And by the time he got all the way around, he'd get tagged by someone else, Jair Brown, safety or corner. So that's quite a weapon to have. It's not like Nick Bosa is making plays like that on his side of the defensive line. And then after practice, Trent Williams talked. He's so good with the media. He's just a dream, mature guy, 37-year-old, good age. So I asked him, he was asked about Michael Williams, really praised him. I said, does he remind you of anyone? I asked Trent Williams last year if Jordan Mason reminded him of anyone. He said, yeah, Marshawn Lynch. So I was thinking, I don't know, maybe he's gonna say he reminds him of Alden Smith, because that's who Michael Williams reminds me of, Alden Smith. But it's not a perfect comparison because Alden Smith was just a better pass rusher. I mean, he wasn't playing defensive tackle in the NFL. He didn't have to. He was racking up double-digit sacks on the edge, which Michael Williams may never do. So it's not a perfect comparison, but just body type, they remind me of each other. asked Trent Williams, who, has faced these guys, knows a little bit more about these players and football in general. So he said, yeah, does remind me of someone, a young, slender DeForest Buckner, which I thought was pretty dead on. But again, he's like, there's shades of DeForest Buckner, but he's different and he hasn't proven it. DeForest Buckner is a perennial elite player. Alden Smith was one of the best in the league early on, and Michael Williams is young, but I see Alden, he sees Buckner. That's coming from Trent Williams, one of the best players of all time. So what makes him like Buckner? He's really, really big. He's almost 6'6". He's almost like 270, 80 pounds. Not quite as big as Buckner, but Buckner was like 6'8", 290. This guy's like 6'6", 6'5", 270. And he can win as a pass rusher with swim moves and all kind of stuff just because he's so much bigger and longer than the guy he's going against. So if Trent Williams sees young DeForest Buckner, that's good. I mean, maybe that'll atone for the Niners trading the original DeForest Buckner. I feel like the Niners got this pick right. I feel like they got it right. I know I shouldn't say that. They haven't even put the pads on yet, but they were going to have to get a pick right eventually. It's been what? Nick Bosa, Brandon Ayuk, and that's it in round one. I think the fact that they picked the Georgia guy was probably a safe way to go about it. He looks good, but the problem is, I don't know if you guys have heard the reports out of Kansas City, but Josh Simmons, that offensive tackle that I didn't want the Niners to take because he torn his patella tendon in his knee, and I felt like, man, you can't mess around with that because Drake Jackson had the same injury and his career is like over. Well, it turns out that Josh Simmons seems to have like bounced back from that particular injury, and he's doing great, at least in camp. So well, in fact, that Jalen Moore is now playing right tackle, former 49er legend Jalen Moore. So I don't know. That's kind of scary considering the Niners desperately need an offensive tackle, and a lot of people compare Josh Simmons to Trent Williams himself coming out of Ohio State. So that's something to look for. But Michael Williams, the defensive line, so far so good. If I had to like project the depth chart for how this would look, you have Bosa at one D end, pure D end, and then behind him probably like Sam Okawanu, and then you have like the base 3 tech who would move maybe to nose tackle on third down or pass rushing downs, and that would be Alfred Collins or Jordan Elliott and Kevin Givens. And then you'd have like the true nose tackles in the base defense that are playing in the A gap, one technique, just a shade, not head up with the center, but just a shade to their side. And those guys aren't going to be playing on third down in the nickel defense. That's CJ West, Evan Anderson, Kalia Davis, just short, stout run defenders. Then you got that base D end that'll move into defensive tackle, play 3 technique in the nickel defense on passing downs. That's Michael Williams and Yetur Gross-Matos, who is always hurt. I don't know where he is or when he plans on playing. Probably when he's healthy, whenever that is. And then you got like the pure designated edge rushers who are on the field when the Niners are expecting pass. They don't want these guys on the field for run plays. And really, it's just Bryce Huff. Also, Robert Beal, although I don't think he's going to make the team. That's how I see Robert Saleh's vision for this defensive line.